If you had told me at the beginning of the year that Joe Flacco would start week 1 for the New York Jets and then start week 18 for the New York Jets, I would tell you something went horribly wrong with Zach Wilson, but that is finally where we see ourselves at the end of the year. Zach Wilson is a healthy scratch. Why is Joe Flacco starting the final game of the season?
Jets, 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 Jets!
Again, it's more, give Joe this opportunity, but also with Zach, you call it coach's decision. I want to stay firm with him and make sure that he gets to attack this offseason. And I just want to get him to the offseason so we can start and attack the plan that we've been building. Putting him out there right now, I just don't, it's not going to do him any good. It's not going to do anyone any good. For him, for Zach, it's all about 23.
Welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, we've gotten to the final week of the season. Poetic justice. Joe Flacco starts game 1 for the New York Jets, now starting game 17 for the New York Jets to close out our season in a game that does not matter to the New York Jets in terms of their playoff outlook. Jets have been eliminated from playoff contention last week with their loss to the Seattle Seahawks, so that means Joe Flacco gets to play in what very well may be his final career game in the NFL. I mean, based on the last time we saw Joe Flacco play, this probably is going to be his final game in the NFL. Now, raises a few questions. What do we talk about with Zach Wilson? You heard Robert Saleh there kind of say, this isn't going to do him any good. It's not going to do anyone any good. He's got to focus on 2023. I think part of it is letting Joe Flacco have the swan song, but also in Robert Saleh's press conference, Dwayne Brown's not playing, George Fant's not playing, Nate Herbig's not playing, LDT is a game time decision. You have the corpse of Laken Tomlinson at left guard already, and then you got Connor McGovern in the middle, literally the only guy that has been here for multiple years at this point and has been relatively healthy through the whole thing. So when I'm looking at our young signal caller in Zach Wilson, there's no way I want to put him behind that offensive line, first and foremost. Secondly, I completely agree with Robert Saleh's take on this. It's not going to help Zach Wilson right now. What would you have to see from Zach Wilson to determine he's the guy? Or to, would he show you anything that would change your opinion on what he is currently right now? A lot of people speculate there could be some type of coaching adjustment, whether it's bringing in an additional quarterback coach, a passing game coordinator, something along those lines to help Zach next year. When I'm looking at this, I'm saying, look, Zach Wilson, you do us way more good if you are fully healthy going into this next season. Kyler Murray had a non-contact knee injury. He's not going to start the 2023 campaign for the Arizona Cardinals. For the Jets, a team that's reeling, trying to figure out their quarterback situation, and this guy figures to be at least a part of the conversation for this offseason. Having him healthy, going through a new offseason program with whoever that new coach may wind up being, or even just resetting his own mental clock with the footwork and everything like that. Nothing good happens if Zach Wilson gets hurt playing behind the D team on the offensive line. No shot. Not to mention, I really want Garrett Wilson to get Offensive Rookie of the Year. There's a really good shot the Jets at least get Sauce to get Defensive Rookie of the Year. But Garrett Wilson is no longer the favorite. You have Kenneth Walker, who overtook Garrett Wilson last week, largely in part because Garrett Wilson didn't have a ton of yards and Kenneth Walker just kind of ran silly all over us. Little frustrating. Garrett Wilson nearly has double the amount of statistics when playing with Joe Flacco versus playing with Zach Wilson. So maybe there's an opportunity he gets his little accolade that I think he probably should have had and would have had, Breece Hall and whatnot. But I think if you had competent quarterback play, I think Garrett Wilson could have been the runaway Offensive Rookie of the Year with Breece Hall being out. And then on top of that, you're talking about is there a situation where Zach Wilson's not on this team next year? Well, if he gets hurt, what are you possibly getting from him? You can't trade a player while they're hurt. For me, it just makes all the sense in the world to sit Zach Wilson. Don't put him out in front of the firing line. And not to mention, the Jets do kind of, Zach Wilson's under contract. He's going to be here next year, or at the very least, you need to utilize him as some sort of trade chip in the offseason. But either way, it's important that he is healthy. Mike White on the other side of this coin, you don't know what you necessarily have in him. I don't think you necessarily think he is the starter, but I think you want to bring him back for next year because he knows the offense. I think even if you're bringing in a new quarterback, having him as the backup really is not the worst decision to make here. And I don't know from like another team's perspective, what can you gain? What is there any trade value that increases with Zach Wilson if he plays against the third string quarterback of the Miami Dolphins in a meaningless game with no starters playing? Like, to me, that just sends up all types of red flags across the board. You put yourself in a bad situation. Not to mention, this is pretty smart from like a tanking perspective. Not that I'm endorsing a tank, but if you determine that the tackle position is a critical need for the New York Jets, and it looks like there's probably 3 top tackles in this draft, and they're all going to be gone probably by the time the 15th pick rolls around, and you're currently sitting in the 13th pick, may not be the worst idea to let a game slip away with a quarterback who's not going to be here next year, that the fan base, if Zach or White loses this game to a third string quarterback, there's going to be a ton of hell. The media is going to be up a wall. The fans are going to be irate. Like, at least at this point, you start Flacco. Maybe Garrett Wilson gets Offensive Rookie of the Year. Most people probably are not going to watch this pathetic game that's going to wind up happening. And then you can kind of tank and get better draft position because of it. And it's not so much that you're actively tanking, but you're literally sitting out so many starters. You're missing 3.5 starters on the offensive line at this particular point. You're not playing, I think they said Whitehead, Joyner, like a whole bunch of guys are just not playing in this game. This is what's known as a business decision. Joe Flacco gets his final swan song. Zach Wilson gets to sit back, not worry about the fan base, not worry about all the BS that's going on right now. Hit the reset button. By the time camp and all that stuff happens in June, there's going to be 30% roster turnover year over year. There's about a 30% roster turnover. You're going to have a slightly different dynamic going into next season, and I think this helps Zach Wilson in some kind of capacity. I don't think putting him out there with not a whole lot of starters, I mean, the fan base is just going to absolutely chew him up. Guys, let me know your thoughts on Joe Flacco starting in place of Zach Wilson. Would you prefer this to be the case? Would you rather see Zach Wilson play one more time? Are you going to be watching the game? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.